My husband left me while we were preparing to adopt because he got his ex pregnant with twins. He packed his bags and told me I'm going to build a real family with her. That was 2 months ago. Yesterday, he showed up on my doorstep. Broke, alone, and crying. Let me tell you how we got here. My name's Rachel. I'm 34, live in Columbus, and if you're watching this from anywhere, Texas, Florida, overseas, drop your city in the comments. I really want to know who hears me tonight. It was a Thursday evening in March when my entire life imploded. I was sitting in what was supposed to become our nursery, organizing paint swatches and debating between gentle rain and morning mist for the walls. Tyler and I had been trying to conceive for 2 years, and after 3 failed IUF cycles, we were preparing to adopt. The home study was scheduled for next month. Our adoption consultant had already matched us with a potential birth mother. Everything was finally falling into place. Tyler walked in holding his phone like it weighed 50 pounds, and I just knew something was about to shatter. You know that feeling when the air pressure changes right before a storm? That's exactly what filled our little nursery as he sat down on the rocking chair we'd bought at an estate sale the previous weekend. Rachel, we need to talk. 4 words that hit like a sledgehammer to my chest. I set down the paint swatches, my hands surprisingly steady. Okay. He couldn't look at me. This man who'd held my hand through every fertility appointment, who'd cried with me after each negative pregnancy test, who'd promised we'd build a family one way or another, he couldn't even meet my eyes. Kayla's pregnant, he said, and for a moment I thought he meant our adoption consultant, but no, he meant Kayla. His ex-girlfriend from college, the one who dumped him senior year to find herself in Portland, the one he swore meant nothing when she moved back to Columbus 6 months ago. She's having twins, he continued, each word falling like stones into still water. They're mine, and I need to do the right thing. I'm going to be there for her, for them. The nursery suddenly felt like it was underwater. I could see his mouth moving, could hear words about didn't mean for this to happen and you deserve better and this is killing me. But all I could focus on was the small wooden sign I'd hung above the crib that read dreams come true. How long? I asked, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. 4 months, he admitted. The affair. She's 5 months pregnant now. 5 months? While I was injecting myself with hormones, tracking ovulation, eating Brazil nuts because I'd read they help with implantation, he was creating the family we dreamed of with someone else. The cruelty of it was almost artistic in its completeness. I'll start packing tonight, he said, standing up like he'd just finished a business presentation. I'm sorry, Rachel. I never wanted to hurt you. I looked at this man I'd loved for 6 years, married for 4, and felt something inside me quietly disconnect like unplugging a phone from its charger. I hope it works out for you, I said, and I meant it. Not in a bitter way, not in a sarcastic way, but in the same tone you'd use to wish a coworker well at their going-away party. He blinked at me, confused. That's it. You're not going to fight for us? Fight for what, Tyler? You made your choice. Those babies need their father. The words came out steady, measured. I won't stand in your way. He left that night while I sat in the nursery, not crying, not raging, just sitting. Sometimes pain is so complete that it circles back around to numbness, and that's where I found myself in this strange, otherworldly calm. The next morning, I began the methodical process of unraveling our intertwined life. First, the adoption agency. That phone call hurt more than I expected. Our consultant, Linda, was devastated for me. We'd been so close to placement. The birth mother had chosen us specifically because she loved our story. High school sweethearts who'd beaten the odds. I could hear Linda typing as she removed us from the active list, each keystroke another nail in the coffin of the family I'd imagined. Then came the fertility clinic. I had 2 embryos frozen from our last AVF cycle, embryos that were half Tyler, half me. The nurse asked if I wanted to keep them in storage and I said no. The consent forms for disposal would arrive by mail. Sign here to acknowledge your potential children will be destroyed. Just another Tuesday in the world of reproductive heartbreak. I returned everything we'd bought for the nursery. The crib from Bye Bye Baby, $748 back in my account. The designer diaper bag from Nordstrom that I'd splurged on, $395 returned. The tiny Ohio State onesies I'd bought in a moment of hope, $67.50 credited to my card. Each return felt like I was deleting a future that would never exist. My dental office manager salary was decent, but I'd need to adjust to living on one income. I removed Tyler from my health insurance, which saved me $240 a month. Canceled the family phone plan we'd shared. Switching to a single line, changed my Netflix password. Petty, maybe, but necessary. Updated my emergency contacts at work from Tyler Brennan husband to Maya Chen, best friend. He moved out that weekend while I was at my sister's house. She'd insisted I not be there to watch him pack, and she was right. When I came home Sunday evening, the house felt bigger, emptier, but also somehow lighter. His absence was a presence of its own, but not an unwelcome one. 2 weeks passed in a blur of work and reorganizing. I turned his office into a yoga room, though I didn't do yoga. I just needed that space to be something else. Anything else. That's when the first call came. Rachel, it's Sharon. Tyler's mother, who'd always treated me like the daughter she'd never had. Sweetheart, I just heard. This is all such a mess. I sat down on my new yoga mat, still stiff from the store. Hi, Sharon. Listen, I know my son made a terrible mistake, but Tyler's not thinking clearly. Kayla's not good for him. She never was. You know how she manipulated him in college. I wanted to laugh. Kayla manipulated him. He was the one who'd been sleeping with her while I was planning our adoption, but I kept quiet, letting Sharon fill the silence. Those babies need stability. Rachel, you and Tyler were building something real. Don't let this girl destroy that. Sharon, Tyler made his choice. He chose Kayla and those children. I'm respecting that. But you're his wife. Her voice cracked with desperation. Doesn't that mean anything to you? It meant everything to me, I said quietly. But apparently it didn't mean the same to him. She hung up on me, which was honestly a relief. But Sharon was just the opening act. Tyler's sister Brittany showed up at my office 3 days later. She worked at the bank across the street and knew exactly when I took my lunch break. Rachel, please, just hear me out, she said, sliding into the booth across from me at Panera. Tyler's miserable. He's made a huge mistake. I continued eating my soup, waiting for her to get to the point. Kayla's family is trash, Brittany continued, lowering her voice. Her dad's been in and out of jail. Her mom's an alcoholic. Those babies are going to grow up in chaos. You and Tyler could give them stability. Those are Kayla's children, I reminded her. And Tyler's, not mine. But you wanted children so badly, she pressed. This could be your chance. The audacity of it was breathtaking. They wanted me to raise my husband's affair babies as some sort of consolation prize for being cheated on. I set down my spoon and looked at Brittany directly. I wanted children with my husband, not from his affair. There's a difference. She left in a huff, but the campaign was far from over. My own mother, who'd initially been ready to kill that bastard with her bare hands, started softening her stance after a few weeks. Honey, I've been thinking, she said during our weekly phone call. Marriage is about forgiveness. Everyone makes mistakes. Mom, he didn't forget to take out the trash. He had a 4-month affair and got another woman pregnant with twins. I know, but you've invested so much in this relationship. Don't you think it's worth trying to salvage? There's nothing to salvage. He's living with Kayla now. They're preparing for their babies. But what about you? You're 34, Rachel. Starting over now. It's going to be so much harder to find someone and have children. That stung because it voiced my own fears. But I'd rather be alone than be someone's second choice, someone's fallback plan when their fantasy fell apart. If you're still with me at this point, this story gets worse before it gets better. Hit like or subscribe if you've ever had someone you trusted completely show you exactly who they really were. The universe apparently wasn't done testing me. 6 weeks after Tyler left, my phone rang at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. I almost didn't answer. I had a presentation the next morning, but something made me pick up. Rachel. Tyler's voice was strained, panicked. I'm sorry to call, but I didn't know who else to contact. What's wrong? Despite everything, my first instinct was still concern. Kayla's in the hospital. Preterm labor. They're trying to stop it, but, Rachel, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I sat up in bed, my heart rate spiking despite myself. Did you call her mom? She's drunk. Won't answer. Her dad's upstate, you know, the prison thing. Rachel, please. I know I have no right to ask, but could you come? Just for tonight, I need someone who knows how to handle things. For a moment. Just a moment. I considered it. This was muscle memory, the instinct to support him, to be his rock. I was halfway out of bed before clarity returned like cold water to the face. Tyler, you chose this. You chose her. You chose those babies. This is your responsibility now, not mine. But you're so good in a crisis, and I'd call Brittany. Call your mom. Call literally anyone else. I'm not your emergency contact anymore. I hung up and turned off my phone. The next morning, I had 17 missed calls and dozens of texts. Tyler, Sharon, Brittany, even some mutual friends, all painting me as heartless for not rushing to support a woman who'd been sleeping with my husband and the man who'd betrayed me. But here's what they didn't understand. Boundaries aren't cruel. They're necessary. Maya, my best friend since college, was the only one who got it. She worked in HR at Tyler's old company. He'd left abruptly a month before our separation, claiming he wanted to pursue new opportunities. Over wine one evening, she dropped a bomb I hadn't seen coming. Rachel, I shouldn't tell you this, but you need to know. Tyler didn't leave his job voluntarily. He was under investigation. I set down my wine glass. For what? Financial discrepancies. Nothing proven, but enough that they offered him a quiet exit instead of a full investigation. The timing with Kayla, I don't think it's coincidental. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The sudden credit card bills that seemed higher than usual. His insistence on handling our taxes alone this year. The way he'd been unusually interested in my retirement account balances. Maya, are you saying? I'm saying you should check your credit report. Tonight. I did, and there it was, a personal line of credit in my name that I'd never opened, with a $15,000 balance. The applications had been submitted online using my social security number, my information, but an email address I didn't recognize. The funds had been withdrawn as cash advances over 3 months. The man I'd trusted with my heart, my future, my finances, he'd stolen from me while planning his exit. I spent the next morning at the police station filing a fraud report, then at the bank disputing the accounts. The officer who took my report, a tired-looking woman named Detective Murray, had seen this before. Domestic financial fraud is more common than people think, she said. Partners have access to all the information they need. They assume you'll be too heartbroken or embarrassed to pursue charges. I'm neither, I assured her. Good. You'll need that energy. These cases can take months to resolve. 2 months after Tyler left, almost to the day, I was deep cleaning the garage when I heard a car pull into my driveway. I looked out to see Tyler's Honda Civic, the one he'd insisted on buying new last year despite my suggestions to get something used. He sat in the driver's seat for a full 5 minutes before finally getting out. He looked terrible. He'd lost weight he couldn't afford to lose, his clothes were wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes that makeup couldn't hide. This was not a man living his best life with his new family. "Rachel?" he started, and I could already hear the tears in his voice. "Can we talk?" I leaned against the garage door frame, keeping physical distance between us. "About the fraud charges. My lawyer says I shouldn't discuss that with you." His face crumpled. "It's not." Kayla left. I said nothing, waiting for him to continue. "She went back to Portland with the twins. Said she needed space to figure things out, that I wasn't who she thought I was. Her ex from Portland, apparently he's willing to raise them as his own." The irony was so thick you could spread it on toast. Tyler had left me for Kayla and their babies, and now Kayla had left him for someone else who would raise those same babies. It was almost poetic. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I was. Not for him, but for those babies who were being treated like accessories in their parents' drama. "Rachel, I made the worst mistake of my life. You were everything. My anchor, my future, what we had was real. This thing with Kayla, it was just fantasy. I see that now." "No, Tyler, what we had was real for me. For you, it was a safety net while you explored your options." He stepped closer, and I could smell his cologne. The same one I'd bought him for Christmas last year. "Please, just give me another chance. We could still adopt, we could still have the family we planned. I'll go to therapy, I'll do whatever it takes." "Tyler, you committed fraud. You stole $15,000 from me." I was desperate. I needed money to prepare for the twins, and I knew you'd never agree. "So you stole it instead?" He was crying now, ugly sobbing in my driveway on a Tuesday afternoon. "I'll pay it back. Every penny. Please, Rachel. I have nothing. Kayla's gone. My family thinks I'm an idiot. I'm living in a studio apartment that smells like mildew. You're all I have left." "No," I said simply. "I'm not what you have left, I'm what you threw away." "But you said you hoped it worked out for me," he argued, grasping at straws. "That means you still care." "I did hope it worked out, because if it had, you'd stay gone. But your relationship failing doesn't mean ours gets resurrected. I'm not your backup plan, Tyler." "This is because of someone else, isn't it? You're seeing someone." "I wasn't, not yet. But that wasn't the point. This is because you showed me exactly who you are, and I believe you." He stood there for another moment, shoulders shaking, before finally walking back to his car. As he drove away, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sadness, just the neutral feeling of watching a stranger leave. The fraud case took 6 months to fully resolve. Tyler eventually agreed to a payment plan to avoid criminal charges. $500 a month for 30 months automatically withdrawn from his account. I wouldn't have to deal with him directly. During those months, I focused on rebuilding. Not just my credit or my finances, but myself. I joined a hiking group that met Sunday mornings, started taking pottery classes on Thursdays, adopted a rescue dog named Henrietta who had trust issues that matched my own. We healed together, Henry and I taking long walks and learning that not everyone who approached us meant harm. My family eventually stopped pushing. Sharon sent one last guilt trip text about how I was abandoning family, which I screenshot and saved in a folder labeled evidence of crazy that Maya had suggested I keep. Brittany still glares at me when I see her at the bank, but she doesn't approach anymore. 8 months after Tyler left, I met Daniel at a pottery class. He was terrible at it, worse than me. Which was saying something. His bowls looked like abstract art and his mugs couldn't hold liquid without leaking. But he laughed at himself, showed up every week and never made excuses for his failures. "I'm recently divorced," he told me over coffee after our 4th class. "My ex-wife decided she preferred her CrossFit trainer to her accountant husband. It's been a year and I'm still learning how to be single again." "My husband left me for his pregnant ex-girlfriend," I replied, "then committed fraud in my name. It's been 8 months. Daniel laughed, not at the situation, but at the absurdity of it all. We really know how to pick them, don't we? Apparently we did. Past tense. We took it slow. Coffee became lunch. Lunch became dinner. Dinner became Saturday morning farmers market trips where we'd buy too much produce and challenge each other to actually cook with kohlrabi or dragon fruit. He met Henry on our 6th date and immediately got on the floor to let her sniff him properly, not rushing her trust. Daniel never promised me the moon. He promised Tuesday night takeout and Saturday morning walks. He promised to be honest about his feelings, even when they were complicated. He promised to never make unilateral decisions about our future. I can't give you children, he told me one evening, 6 months into our relationship. The chemo I had in my 20s. The doctor said it was highly unlikely. I can't give you children either, I replied. The IVF destroyed my faith in my body's ability to cooperate, but maybe that's okay. Maybe our family looks different. If you're still watching this, maybe you've been through something similar, or maybe you're in the middle of your own betrayal, wondering if you're being too harsh, too unforgiving. I need you to know something. Choosing yourself isn't cruel. Refusing to accept less than you deserve isn't bitter. It's necessary. A year and a half after Tyler left, I ran into Kayla at Target. She was buying diapers in bulk, the twins in a double stroller, and she looked exhausted in that specific way new mothers do. Her Portland romance had apparently ended too, based on the absence of a ring and the way she did everything one-handed while managing the babies alone. She saw me before I could redirect my cart, and for a moment we just looked at each other. These two women whose lives had been catastrophically intertwined by one man's choices. They're beautiful, I said, because they were. Two little boys with Tyler's nose and Kayla's eyes, innocent of all the drama that preceded their existence. Thank you, she said quietly. Rachel, I'm sorry for everything. We all made choices. I replied. I hope yours lead you somewhere good. I meant it. Not for her sake, but for those boys who deserved better than the chaos they'd been born into. As I walked away, I felt the last thread of connection to that old life finally snap. Clean, final, free. Daniel proposed last month, not with a grand gesture but with a quiet question over morning coffee. What if we tried this again? Marriage, I mean. But our version of it. I said yes. Not because I needed to be married, not because I was afraid of being alone, but because I'd learned to recognize what real partnership looked like. It looked like someone who showed up consistently, who handled conflict with conversation instead of betrayal, who saw a future with me that didn't require me to sacrifice myself to maintain it. We're getting married next spring. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Maya's my maid of honor, Henry will be our ring bearer, though we're realistic about her actually performing that duty. Tyler's name hasn't come up once in our planning, which is how you know you've truly moved on. When the person who once dominated your thoughts becomes just a footnote in your story, a lesson learned on the way to something better. Tyler still makes his monthly payments. I had them automatically deposited into a separate account that I'm using to fund a scholarship at the local community college for women recovering from domestic abuse. It felt right to transform that stolen money into something that could help others escape their own betrayals. Sometimes I think about the nursery that never became a nursery. It's Daniel's home office now. He works remotely twice a week. We've talked about fostering teenagers, the kids who age out of cute and into complicated, who need stable adults more than they need parents. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. The future is open in a way it never was when I was desperately trying to force life into a specific shape. The last time I heard about Tyler was through the peculiar grapevine of small city gossip. He's living with his parents, working at a car dealership, and has supervised visitation with the twins every other weekend. Kayla's dating someone new, a man who apparently loves those boys like they're his own. The family Tyler destroyed hours to create never actually materialized. It was vapor. A projection, a grass is greener fantasy that turned out to be artificial turf. I don't feel vindicated by his struggles. I don't feel anything about them at all, which is the truest sign of healing. Indifference, not hatred, is the opposite of love. When someone becomes just another stranger whose problems aren't your problems, whose joy or pain doesn't move your emotional needle, that's when you know you're free. People sometimes ask if I regret not taking him back, if I wonder what would have happened if I'd been more forgiving. The answer is no. Not because I'm bitter or unforgiving, but because I learned something valuable from that whole experience. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Tyler showed me he was someone who could look me in the eye while destroying our future, who could steal from me while I was planning our family, who could abandon me the moment something seemingly better came along. Taking him back wouldn't have been forgiveness, it would have been amnesia. This story doesn't end with revenge. Tyler's life fell apart without any help from me. I didn't sabotage his relationship with Kayla, didn't turn his family against him, didn't even badmouth him to our mutual friends. I simply stepped back and let him experience the natural consequences of his choices. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone who's wronged you is absolutely nothing at all. If you made it this far, you're probably someone who understands that real strength isn't about fighting for relationships that have already ended. It's about having the courage to let go, to rebuild, and to trust that something better is waiting on the other side of betrayal. I'm Rachel, this was my story, and I'm finally, genuinely, completely okay.